Well, here we go again, everyone. Just when one controversy around healthcare prices settles down, another one seems to pop up. So this was from last week, the Wall Street Journal's coverage that a company called Marathon Pharmaceuticals was going to charge $89,000 for a muscular dystrophy drug. Now, what's controversial about this is an old-time drug that has been around. It's a type of steroid. It's in the class if you've had a rash or an allergic reaction where your doctor gave you prednisone. It's in that class of drugs. It's a different drug, but in that class. And it's called deflazacort or Emflaza. And Marathon is commercializing this drug. And now, that's not to say that they didn't do any research. So yeah, they certainly have incurred some costs to treat a catastrophic illness. As you can see on the right, these kids are catastrophically ill. They tend only to be, the gradual muscular weakness typically ends their life in young adulthood. They're not able to breathe. And so Marathon Pharmaceuticals bought this drug to commercialize it. The phase 3 pivotal trial was completed when Marathon bought this drug. And to give you some idea, this drug is available, the generic version, around the world, and you can pay, it works out to be about $1,200 a year if you want to import it through gray market channels from places like Canada or something. Marathon came out with a list price of $89,000 a year, and they admitted that with rebates, you could get rebates and knock it down to $54,000 a year. In addition, this is an orphan drug, so they got expedited review. But in addition, the FDA gave them a voucher for priority review. Now, Marathon doesn't have to keep this voucher. They can go out on the open market and sell this for millions of dollars. So it's a little bit frustrating. The physicians who treat a lot of Duchenne's muscular dystrophy have been able to get this drug under compassionate use guidelines for many, many years. But now people are wondering, okay, once it's released, is that all going to go away now? Are they going to have access to this compassionate use? Or is this a stick up to the pharmaceutical company? This patient has been on this drug for some number of years and is doing very well. You must continue it. You must put it on your formulary. Is this a power move disguised as compassionate use? So what happened and why it's news today is that Marathon decided to pause their release of this drug, and they're going to continue the compassionate use program. They claim if for concerned patients, they're structuring this so it'll be a copay of $20 to the patients, but the insurance companies are going to have to make up the $53,000 and something dollars. And it doesn't take a lot to figure out. And here's the quote from a 12-year-old: "You're robbing my insurance company." And here we go again. These drug companies just keep doing this stuff. And it gets us into the issue of high drug prices. Now, when you talk, okay, so, I'm kind of slamming Marathon for this, and they did a lot, they made some mistakes here, but there's a lot of confusion when people talk about high drug prices. What do you mean? If you're upset about high drug prices, what do you mean? Are you upset about the list prices? I've heard people that are upset about the amount of discounts that are given to large provider systems or to the pharmaceutical benefits managers like Express Scripts. Are you upset about the high cost of brand name drugs? Is this large molecules, biologics, small molecules, generics? What are you talking about specifically? Okay. So there's that level. that we drill down to of being more focused, and I'll address this in a minute in more detail. But really, remember what we're really getting at underneath all of this is that this is a discussion where pharma does not want to be about patients questioning the value of these drugs, and pharma just does not want to be there. Okay, pharma has to be able to make a rational argument for the value of their compound that aligns with their drug price, and this is what the marathon controversy is about, that the value is not there for that kind of price point. So that's why this is a concern. So this Emflaza, it's a brand name drug. What is the issue with high prices in this area? I also include biologics in this area that are becoming increasingly popular. Number one, there's high development costs. I don't particularly believe the Tufts study that claims that to bring a new drug out costs $2.4 billion. When you look at that study, much of the cost that they're claiming is approximately 50% of that cost is the opportunity cost. Gee whiz, we could have invested this money in the stock market and made a handsome return of over $1 billion. So I don't believe that, but it's certainly in the range of $1 billion, certainly. So and it's a lot of money. It's a complex undertaking as well. Recognize that much of what you're paying is for the research inefficiencies. That, of the 5,000 to 10,000 compounds identified as potential candidates, only one of them survives the clinical trial process. There's a lot of inefficiencies. And we were promised that the genetics revolution, by unlocking the mysteries of the genome, we were going to get much more efficient in this research, pharmaceutical research project. And that simply has not panned out. So there's a disappointment. Yes, we have gained the benefits of precision medicine. And we have been able to identify, for example, repairs of genetic defects. For example, if you have leukemia, and with this particular genetic defect that caused your leukemia, well, we have a drug that will fix that. So that's remarkable, but also acknowledge that what the genetics revolution has given the pharmaceutical industry is smaller markets, much more targeted markets. And you can only get access to this drug if you pass over this genetic hurdle. And partly because of these smaller markets, the peak sales of these blockbuster drugs just aren't what they used to be. They've been dropping quite a bit. So for every 1 in 5,000 or 1 in 10,000 compound that gets through the process and introduced to the market, despite these higher list prices, there's still the peak total sales are much lower. They're getting much lower run-up. They don't get the big hockey stick like they used to. Just kind of is a bump and then comes down before going off patent and becoming a genetic drug, or a generic drug. And within this, I'm including biosimilars. They're hit by the same thing. Now recognize with the biologic drug that there are also a lot of costs to produce this drug. The old joke used to be in pharma, well, the first pill costs $1 billion and the second pill and every pill thereafter costs a penny to make. Not true with biologics. Biologics can be very, very expensive to simply make the drug. So for example, maybe you're taking this E. coli bacteria and you're training this bacteria to make a some kind of protein, which then you will then purify and distill and bottle for patients. That's very expensive. This is not simply stamping out a new drug anymore. So with generics and biosimilars, sometimes you get into a lack of competition. The prices on generics, which has been a great thing for patients, and patients love this. And Walmart sells these drugs across the board, many of them for $4 per month. That's a great thing. But those low sales prices mean very little revenue, and a lot of companies are dropping out. So where there used to be 4 or 5 generic makers of a compound, of a drug, now there may be one, and that lack of competition will naturally raise the prices. The supplies of these drugs can be very difficult when there's such low price points. The suppliers don't make enough. It's not worth it. They might go out of business, divert their supply to something else, which raises the price. The price of these components of these generic drugs has been going up quite a bit. And yes, if you recognize in the bottom right, we have people like Martin Shkreli, the pharma bro, and Turing Pharmaceutical, that took a generic medicine from $13 a month to $750 a month. He has, of course, been called in front of Congress and lectured by Congress. He laughed at congressmen. He's just not somebody we need associated with the industry. So, these biologics, I talked about how they're expensive, but they're so much more expensive than in other countries in the United States. And you see a couple of examples. Humira, which is used in rheumatoid arthritis, and a lot of these anti-inflammatory new biologics out there. $2,000 in the United States for a 1-month supply, less than $1,000 in Switzerland. And Switzerland is one of the higher paying states within the European Union. A drug for Copaxone for multiple sclerosis, nearly $4,000 in the U.S. per month, a little over $1,000 in Switzerland. So a lot of people are upset. They want something done. They want transparency in pricing. They want to allow Medicare to negotiate, something that pharmaceutical industry is not in favor of. You keep doing this stuff, you're going to get negotiations with Medicare. They want to limit choices. A lot of people want to import drugs from Canada. I lived in Maine, as many of you know, for 20 years, and there are announcements in the newspaper, on the internet. We're taking a bus up to Canada to buy prescriptions, and the Attorney General stays far away from that. They don't look to prosecute these people. One of the solutions that came up on Real Clear Health recently was interesting, by Marcel Arac and her co-author from Emory, is that we should allow negotiations very much in line with how we negotiate for public utilities. That there is a quasi-governmental panel of experts, not government employees, but it's organized by the government, experts in this industry, to negotiate reasonable prices with these monopolists, whether they're the electrical power companies, whether it's water companies, or they say with pharmaceutical companies. This is one of the solutions, public utilities type negotiations. And of course, President Trump has talked about allowing Medicare to negotiate, which is currently not legal. And there's a lot of popularity for this. Medicare Part D, brought in by the Bush administration, the amount that we're spending on this program is through the roof. So President Trump wants to allow these price negotiations. So, that's the thing, Pharma. You keep doing this, and I understand these are renegades in some sets, outliers within the pharmaceutical industry, and the pharmaceutical industry has no way to regulate these. They'd probably be prosecuted for collusion and price fixing if they did try to rein these people in. So it's a very difficult problem for pharma, but these are some of the suggestions. What do you think? Let me know. I'd be interested to hear what you think ought to be done.